Hi guys, it's me HD, and finally welcome to a stream of mine for the first time in 6-7 weeks. It has been a long time, and sadly I've missed quite a bit of Formula 1 action so far, but thankfully I'm now finally back on the channel, and the channel is back basically, and hopefully it will be for the rest of the season. Hopefully you guys, if you are tuning in, hopefully you are doing well. If you're, in Europe, hopefully having a decent day so far. And no matter what part of the world you're from, hopefully you're having a good day so far. And hopefully you're going to join me today, firstly, in watching along and keeping up with the events of practice 2. Of course, the first sprint race of the new Formula 1 season is later on today in about, 4.5 hours from now, which I will be covering as well. And a very mixed up grid it is for the sprint race, but I won't get into really the grid and all of that stuff until later on, because I want to save that for that stream later on. But yeah, great to see you guys, great to be back. I think before I really get into this, talking about the weekend so far, the season so far, in a quick kind of recap, because of, I've missed, 3 Grand Prix. I think it is worth just quickly touching on, and I'll just move on to these, pictures, whilst we wait for the session, to start, and I'll just quickly have them on screen for you guys. Also, if I do sound a bit stuffy, I only woke up like an hour ago, and I do have a slight cold, so do bear with me. Certainly for this stream, probably won't be as bad in the second stream later on once I'm a bit more woken up. So yeah, I covered testing, of course. Did a lot of content for that. And then was looking forward to the Bahrain Grand Prix, which was, 5 weeks ago, I think it was. And then smack bang in the middle between testing finishing and the Bahrain Grand Prix weekend starting, my router, which was a BT Business broadband router, just broke. We tried to fix it. We tried to get it, get the situation sorted, but by the time we realised we would have to get a new router, whether it be from BT or someone else, it was already, the first Grand Prix weekend was already over and done with. So then, after the Bahrain Grand Prix, because as soon as that router, stopped working, I knew that the first Grand Prix definitely I wouldn't be able to cover, and I was very, very frustrated at the time. And then, yeah, the mission, like I said, after that was to get a new router. And probably the only mistake we made is that we decided to try and get an internet service from other people, other companies rather, other than BT, when in hindsight we should have just gone back, or not gone back, but stayed with BT, because the router I've got now is an upgrade on the BT Business broadband router that I did have. So the internet I now have is actually quicker than the router I had before, which is great. But of course, I missed 3 Grand Prix because of it. But yeah, I went with Sky, tried their broadband out, and was terrible. The only reason I could make like little posts here and there is because the internet was good enough just about to make, or to, browse the internet and do certain things, but it was pretty slow. And yeah, they also didn't really connect us properly in a good way for our internet to really work properly. We tried, I say we tried EE, another internet service provider, but I mean, I, went out, bought the full fiber EE package, and they just they never provided the service. And I ordered it, a month ago? And we kept getting delays and delays. I still keep getting texts now from EE saying, that your order is now delayed to this date and this date and this date, even though I've, already cancelled it, basically, and gone back with BT. So that was a complete waste of time. And yeah, eventually led back to BT. And once we got the router, and then once we got it connected, which was yesterday, now we're back on. And like I said, the router and the internet connection is actually better. Probably the best router/internet connection I've probably ever had. So yeah, in hindsight, should have just gone and got a new, better, improved router from BT, which is what we did in the end. But at the end of the day, that's life. Lesson learned for the future. But yeah, I mean, I guess people may say I shouldn't apologise for the missed content, but I do feel like I should in a way, because obviously, I was hyping up my channel in terms of what I was going to be doing for the first Grand Prix and covering all the races and all of that, and then of course ended up not being able to. So I'm sorry from a point of view of it happening when it did, and I'm probably from now on not going to be as keen to announce content as like it's going to absolutely happen no matter what, because of course things do tend to get in the way of that sometimes. But yeah, these things happen, and fortunately, it has been solved, because I was actually fearing it would take longer than it actually took. I was thinking that we wouldn't actually be back on in terms of me being able to stream until the Miami Grand Prix, which of course is in another 2 weeks. That's how bad I thought it was going to be. And when I made, I think, the last community post I made before yesterday, which I think was around the Australian Grand Prix, when I made that post, at that time, I thought that we were probably not going to be on for another month in terms of me being able to stream. That's how bad it was in terms of the service that EE were providing me. Well, they've never provided me a service, pretty much, but, that's how bad it was. So, yeah, that's what happened, and thankfully, it's all done with, and hopefully, with the races I missed so far, hopefully, I won't miss too many more sessions and Grand Prix for the rest of the season. And I'm going to try, probably not at the end of this month, because I am busy with other stuff. Certainly in the week next week, when it comes to other stuff, such as my other job that I do have. But I think probably next month, and certainly once we get into June and July and maybe August, I am going to try and make it up a bit with a bit of extra content for you guys, to keep the content flowing on this channel in the best way possible. But yeah, that's what happened, and I think we should just now move on. So we have 21 minutes or so until practice 2 begins. Practice 2 isn't the most important session in the world when we have a sprint race weekend, because really all the cars are locked into Parc Ferme, so they can't really make any real setup changes or do anything that major to the cars. But really, I think, and it is looking like, by the way, I know on the screen you're seeing pictures of the cars from yesterday. From what I saw for the F3 race earlier, and from what I'm seeing of the Sky F1 coverage right now, it does look like it's going to be a dry Saturday. So it looks as though the conditions are going to be, nice and consistent for the drivers and teams. So we should hopefully get a good indication in practice 2 as to the not the conditions, as to the general pace of all the teams in a sprint race kind of setup, because they're probably all going to run, say, 25 to 30 laps maximum of fuel, and just try and find out pace-wise where they really are. And then, yeah, when it comes to the sprint race and the grid and how things are looking, probably won't get into that majorly until the actual sprint race later on, and when I get into the build-up of that particular race. And yeah, I'll make sure to do that later in, giving my thoughts as to who I think, is probably the favourites to win the sprint race, who's looking quick, who's probably looking a bit under threat. Like I said, I'll get into that later on. But it's looking, I'd say, for this weekend, I mean, obviously, it's a mixed-up grid, like I said, for later's sprint race. I will say, though, the grid overall looks pretty competitive this weekend. I still think Ferrari and Red Bull are the two best teams. There's no doubt about that. But it's not, they're not absolutely miles ahead of the rest. I think the shorter lap distance here absolutely does help when it comes to that. When you compare it to, say, Melbourne or the Saudi track or the Bahrain track, that definitely helps here keep things nice and close. But yeah, it's a competitive looking field. Red Bull look pretty competitive from yesterday in dry and wet conditions. Of course, Max Verstappen. And then McLaren looked pretty decent. Then you got Alpine looking decent. Haas looked pretty good. Obviously, Mercedes are terrible. We'll get into that pretty soon. Of course, I've not given my thoughts yet as to Mercedes and how their season has been. Pretty terrible is really all I can say on that. But yeah, I think the thing I'm very happy about in terms of coming back for this Grand Prix is, like I said, it's a very competitive field. I still think Ferrari and Red Bull are the absolute contenders for victory. Probably Verstappen versus Leclerc, to be honest, as the main contenders, because Perez and Sainz are out of position for the sprint race. But if you look at the midfield after those two teams, or the upper midfield, it's very exciting. There's no doubt about it, especially with the type of drivers we have in higher up positions. And yeah, it's looking great. McLaren, Alpine, Mercedes, Alfa Romeo, Haas, all looking very competitive with one another. And even Sebastian Vettel, of course, in the Aston Martin, putting in a stonking lap in the pre-sprint qualifying yesterday. But yeah, I think with 15 or 16 minutes to go until practice 2, I think what I should do is just quickly get into... I'm not going to do a full-on the season so far type review. Maybe I'll do that in another stream in a couple of weeks' time. But I think I should just quickly get into... Because obviously you guys haven't heard what I've had to say so far this season. Quickly get into how I think the teams are looking at this point of the season. How I think they've done so far. So, I mean, we'll start with Ferrari. Great start to the season. We saw in testing they had a very good car. Even though Red Bull clearly improved their car on the final day of testing, we knew Ferrari were going to be very competitive. I thought their victory in Bahrain was very good. Surprising, honestly, because I thought Red Bull would have had the pace with Verstappen to win that race, especially with the straight line speed the Red Bull does have, but it was not to be. I think that was probably more so down to Charles Leclerc than it was the Ferrari being much quicker, because, of course, Carlos Sainz was clearly behind Verstappen until, of course, both Red Bulls broke down. Then the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, great Grand Prix. Verstappen, of course, getting the win there, but the Ferrari, very close, of course, to winning that Grand Prix. What was it, the last lap? I think it was, or one of the last laps that they got the victory, did Red Bull. So, very close there they were to victory, and they put up a very good fight. It's Max Verstappen, even though they were lucky to get into the lead in the first place with Charles Leclerc, because, of course, that safety car for Sergio Perez came out at the absolute wrong time. But I thought, from a Ferrari perspective, I thought the Australian Grand Prix was the most impressive Grand Prix so far for them. And the reason I think that is because Charles Leclerc, if you compare it to Bahrain, for example, so in Bahrain, Leclerc did get pole, but it was a bit closer. In Australia, it's 0.3 of a second, and then in the race, except for that safety car restart, I think the second one, where he went wide at the final corner and allowed Max Verstappen to have a run at him, except for that, he was flawless and was absolutely superb. And the Ferrari car as well was absolutely brilliant in Australia. And I think that was the reason I think that's the most impressive victory for Ferrari and Charles Leclerc is because it's a lot harder to be that good as a team and a driver around that track than it is Bahrain, because the Melbourne track is a lot tougher of a track. Of course, it's a street track, a lot faster now. It can be a car breaker. Bahrain, of course, has a lot of runoff areas, and it's not exactly the most dangerous circuit in the world. And yeah, I just think it's a lot harder to ace the Albert Park circuit than it is, the Bahrain International Circuit. That's just what I think. So I thought that was a very impressive victory, and obviously 20 seconds clear of the next car being Sergio Perez. That was very, very impressive from Charles Leclerc. And of course, as you can see on the bottom ticker, you would have just seen, he does have a very big lead in the Drivers' Championship. He has a lead of 37, is it 37, 38 points, I think, or 34 points, something like that. It's definitely at least 30 points clear. And of course, Ferrari, you can see there, are basically 40 points clear of Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. The only thing I would say with Ferrari that is a downside or a negative is Carlos Sainz, of course, who signed until 2024 for the Ferrari team. Signed a new contract on Friday or Thursday, I think that was. I think Carlos Sainz hasn't been one of the most disappointing. There's been worse drivers this season, but I think Carlos Sainz has been pretty poor this season. I think it's been one of the most poor starts to a season he has had in his whole F1 career. I can't remember that many times he's been this, just off it compared to what we've normally seen from him in the past. The only other years I can think of is maybe 2015, his debut season, of course, and then his first few races at Renault as another year where his start to the season wasn't that good. I think this season he's not really been that special at all. Of course, it was great for him to complete the Ferrari 1-2 in Bahrain, but he was miles away from Leclerc and Verstappen, not even in the same race, really, and was under threat from Sergio Perez for third place. And if if the Red Bulls didn't break down, and there wasn't a safety car towards the end, Carlos Sainz may not have finished in third place. His pace really was not that good. And then Saudi Arabia, he looked pretty quick through qualifying and practice, but then when it mattered most, again, didn't produce the pace, and was, fourth up until the first safety car. Then, of course, what happened to Perez happened, got pushed up to third, and then that was that. He finished in third, but again, was not in the same league as Leclerc and Verstappen, which, I have to say, and I think most people would agree with this, I think Charles Leclerc is better than Carlos Sainz. Last season, I thought Carlos did a great job to do what he did against Charles Leclerc. And I think Max Verstappen is better than Carlos Sainz, but I didn't think it would be that clear of a gap, you know what I mean, where Leclerc and Verstappen are clearly fighting up the front for the win, and Carlos Sainz is, at best in third place, but not really in the same league or race as them. I didn't think it would be that big of a difference between Leclerc and Verstappen down to Carlos Sainz. I just didn't think that would be the case. But that really has been the case. And then the Australian Grand Prix, he was unlucky with the red flag coming out when it did in qualifying, because if it didn't come out, he would have been at least fourth with what happened towards the end, where I think he got out late on track and then he made a mistake on his final flying lap. Then, of course, he started the race with the hard compound tyre. And then because he had cold tyres, he had a poor start, and then I have to say the mistake he made that led to his retirement, I thought was really poor. It was such an amateur mistake to go deep and then run along the grass and spin off into the gravel. That's something you would see a rookie do, or no disrespect, but Yuki Tsunoda or a Mazepin do. Really, I thought it was a really poor mistake by Carlos Sainz. And look at this weekend. Practice 1, he's, up there kind of with Charles Leclerc, and then in qualifying, yesterday, bins it, puts it in the wall, and now starts P10. I just don't think he's been good this season. I think he's had a very poor start to the season for his own standard. He can absolutely do better. I didn't think Carlos Sainz would really be I thought he'd be a title contender to a certain extent. I didn't think he would be someone who this season would, be a title contender to the very end. Like Verstappen and Hamilton last year, and like maybe Leclerc and Verstappen this season. But I think I didn't expect the poor start he's had. And the thing is, he's had that poor start in terms of his own driving, I think. And yet, you can see there, he's still third in the championship. It shows you how good he can be. Because the potential is there. The Ferrari car is very, very good. It is probably the best car. Well, it is the best car on the grid right now. That can easily change as the season goes on. I don't doubt that Red Bull will improve their car. Especially aerodynamically, of course. But yeah, Carlos Sainz really needs to step it up because he's not really performing anywhere near the level that we've seen in the past and how he should be performing for a Ferrari driver. Just isn't good enough, I'm afraid. And then we'll quickly just move on to the other team. So Red Bull, I think the pace of their car, for me, I mean, yeah, they don't have the best car right now. There's no doubt about that. Ferrari have the better car. Red Bull do have great straight line speed, but they just don't have enough grip, and they're not able to look after their tyres as well as Ferrari, which is simply because Ferrari have more grip than Red Bull do with their car. But if the retirements for Verstappen and Perez, that we saw in Bahrain and then Verstappen in Australia, if that had not happened, I don't think I could sit here and say they've had a poor start to the season, because Verstappen, would have been second in Bahrain, first in Saudi, and then second in Australia. So, yeah, if they had not had those retirements, Verstappen would still be in a very, very good position. And even though Leclerc has been very good this season so far, Ferrari looking very good, I don't think Ferrari are in a dominant position with their car just yet. But of course, the lack of reliability from Red Bull has made their start of the season just nowhere near what it needed to be. We'll see if they can improve upon it. Of course, this year has seen the first real change to the power units with the new E10 fuel. And it is causing some of the manufacturers some trouble. Look at Mercedes. They're clearly lacking in power. And I think it is absolutely down to the new fuel that they are having to run. And yeah, I think it's absolutely causing some manufacturers some issues. I think Red Bull as well. And hopefully, from a Red Bull perspective, they've used up all of their, say, retirement allocation from a race, certainly for Verstappen, because they have a car that is absolutely able to compete for victories. Maybe not at every Grand Prix, but certainly at 50, 55, 60% of races this season. They're going to have a car that's going to win the race. Or not win the race, but they're going to have a car that's going to be able to win the race. It's down to, reliability at the end of the day. And like I said, hopefully they've used up that allocation of retirements that they have had. Hopefully doesn't keep occurring. Because, let's say Verstappen doesn't retire from another race this season. Not likely, I have to say, that happening, but let's say it happens. Max Verstappen can absolutely close the gap to Charles Leclerc, which is, 46 points. Max, we know, we saw it last season, he can go on a tear. He can go out and win 2, 3, 4 races in a row. We know this can happen. So I have no doubt Max Verstappen can get himself back into the championship race. But it really does depend on the reliability now. It really does. And I will say, maybe a lot of people won't agree with me saying this, but if Max Verstappen's next retirement is before Charles Leclerc's first retirement of the season, and Leclerc, whenever that next Verstappen retirement happens, if it is before Leclerc's first retirement, if Leclerc in that same race goes on to win that race, so let's say, even if Verstappen wins the sprint race later, if Leclerc wins the race on Sunday and Verstappen retires, then I think the championship honestly is over. I think the Drivers' Championship is absolutely over if that does happen. Because, 46 points, I think, considering how big the calendar is, I think you can make that up. But if it was to stretch out to 65, 70 points, I know we're only 4 races in, but I just don't think, with the car Ferrari have and how good Leclerc is and how good he's performing, I just don't think you can make that up at all. I just don't see how it can happen. So, Red Bull have got to get on top of that reliability because they are on their last legs for the moment. If they can this weekend, hope Ferrari have a bit of trouble with Leclerc and then pick up the sprint race win for the points and then obviously win the race on Sunday, then that would be a good first step, and they would then close the gap probably 10, 15 points or something, I don't know. And then we'll see what happens from there. But like I said, if Verstappen retires from the race tomorrow and Leclerc wins, then I think it's absolutely over, the championship, and I don't think Carlos Sainz will get into it because I think Leclerc will absolutely beat Sainz this season, even if Sainz improves his performance. And Mercedes, we can briefly get into them as the session gets going in about 2 minutes' time. By the way, great to see so many fans at the track. This is the first race back at Imola where we've actually had fans. The previous 2 races were, completely empty. So great to see the fans back. Of course, this Grand Prix used to be, when it used to be on the calendar as a San Marino Grand Prix, used to be very well attended by the Tifosi and was a popular Grand Prix. There's no doubt about it. Like I said, if Verstappen retires this weekend and Leclerc wins, or if Verstappen's next retirement is before Leclerc's first retirement and Leclerc that weekend, whatever weekend it is, goes on to win, then I think the championship is all but done, or pretty much done for Charles Leclerc, because Max is good, but I don't think he can make up, that big of a margin if that margin gets that big. As, we have about a minute to go until the start of practice 2. Just want to say, guys, don't forget to subscribe if you are new to the channel for more content like this, because I will be live later today at 3 PM UK time, which is in 3.5 hours from now, for the sprint race, which will be... how many laps? 20 laps, I think it'll be. I'll have to go check to make sure. But yeah, it'll be basically a half an hour race. Yeah, make sure to come along to that later on. And as well, I will be going live with content tomorrow. And of course, covering the race as well. So don't forget to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. And also, go to my channel page if you want to do it there. And hit the notifications bell. And don't forget as well to smash the like button. Share this video and channel everywhere you can. And as well... don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. That is on Twitter. Anyway, let's get rid of this stuff. And let's get this stuff up. Let me try. As the session is about to get going. As well, I just want to make this clear. Because I've not done a watch-along in, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, I will probably be a bit rusty today, so do bear with me today. because of that. Yeah, let me just get things going here. And of course, those positions, those are just the automated positions. Of course, I'll update that as the session goes on. And I will be doing lap times as well, but I won't be showing them quite yet because, of course, we don't have any lap times to show. And I'll just get the timer ready as well, as the session is about to get underway here at Imola. It may have already got underway. Actually, it has. So I'll sync up the timer in, 30 or 40 seconds time. As the first car on track is Lance Stroll. Of course, his teammate Sebastian Vettel had a very good sprint. Very good qualifying for the sprint. Finishing up in 9th place. Lance Stroll, I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't that good, was it? It was like 14th or 15th at best, I think it might have been. Yeah, Stroll out on track. I don't think, to be honest, the Aston Martin really has improved. I know Sebastian Vettel put in a good lap, but I don't think that's because the Aston Martin has really improved. I mean, we'll see in these more representative conditions. As there you go. So 59 minutes to go in practice 2, and like I said, I'll update the order as the session goes on, and when I can, I'll add the lap times as well. As we're currently looking at Carlos Sainz on the circuit. Oh, not on the circuit. He's about to get in his car by the looks of it. Is Carlos Sainz. But yeah, whilst we're kind of waiting, and we do actually have a Mercedes out on track of Mr. Saturday himself, George Russell. And of course, Mercedes yesterday, both cars knocked out in Q2. Russell 11th, Hamilton 13th. And then there was an alleged argument between Toto Wolff and Lewis Hamilton. I don't think we can absolutely say what it was, what they were going on about. Because obviously we didn't see the whole thing, but definitely frustrations at Mercedes, and it is expected, or to be expected, because their car is absolute dog shit. That is clear to see. Mercedes, if I just quickly touch on them and how they've been this season, their car is terrible. They are not, the championship's over. They are not winning the championship this season. That car, there is nothing about the Mercedes car that is as good or just comparable to the Ferrari car. And even to a certain extent, the Red Bull car. I mean, the Red Bull car through the corners isn't amazing. It's not the best car in that aspect, but it's definitely a bit better, quite a bit better than the Mercedes. And we know the issues of the Mercedes. The porpoising is just horrible. Toto Wolff said on Sky F1 yesterday that it's so bad, or it was so bad yesterday, they were having to lift on the straight. Lift in a straight line because the car was bouncing that uncontrollably. That the car, I mean, and the reason they're having to lift is because simply it was bouncing too much that they had no control, the drivers, over the car. To regain control, they had to lift to, limit the bouncing. Just, how bad is that? And then, of course, they do have a lack of straight line speed, which is not down to drag. I know Toto Wolff keeps saying that they have a drag issue. I don't believe that for a second, because if you look at the actual data, it doesn't bear itself out in the data itself, because all of the Mercedes-powered teams aren't, as quick in the faster parts of the circuit as Red Bull powertrain cars or Ferrari powered cars or even the Renault powered Alpines. So it is not a drag issue, it is a Mercedes power unit issue, which of course before September, when they start freezing development on certain parts of the power units for the next few years until 2026 when they become a lot more electrified. They have to get that sorted, because if they don't get that sorted and close that gap to Ferrari, the Ferrari power unit, Red Bull powertrain, and the Renault, then this is going to be an issue for years. They're basically going to be paralyzed in that aspect until 2026. They'll be kind of like Red Bull when Red Bull were the third quickest team with the Renault power unit back in 2017, 2018, where no matter how good of a car they made, the lack of power from the Renault meant that they were never going to compete for the championship. That is what they're heading for if they don't sort that out by September. And so, by the way, Guan Yu Zhou, he was the quickest man, and now it is Lando Norris who is the quickest. There you go. Lando Norris up to first place on a 1:23.8. The straight line speed is an issue. And of course, if you're having to lift on the straight because you're porpoising that bad, that's going to add even more pain and slow you down way, way more than the lack of power is anyway. The Mercedes in terrible shape. They're not competing for the championship this year. What they need to focus on between now and September is, of course, improving the PU, getting it on a level to compete with Red Bull, Ferrari, the Renault power unit, because they're all clearly looking stronger at the moment. That's probably the most important thing I would say they need to improve. And then really, once they've done all the work they can to that, as Lewis Hamilton, by the way, goes P1 by quite a bit. Once they've improved that, or, done all the work they can, then they need to focus on the porpoising and improving that. Now, we've heard that Mercedes, they know apparently why the porpoising's happening, but they don't have a solution at the moment. So, if you're looking at Mercedes, if you're a Mercedes fan and you're like, well, is it going to be, this weekend, next week, the next Grand Prix, Spain, Monaco, that's coming up at the end of May, when are Mercedes going to sort this issue out? I don't think we can absolutely say. I thought by this Grand Prix, Mercedes would start to really close the gap. Not massively, but by a tenth or two, and they would start to be not too far away from Red Bull and Ferrari. But even though they've brought upgrades to this Grand Prix, they don't look like they've really improved the car at all this weekend. As Hamilton is still P1, and now we have Guan Yu Zhou back up to second place, and now Pierre Gasly now goes up into P1. So Gasly, let's do it. There you go. And note Sergio Perez now goes even quicker, 1.1 seconds quicker. Does Sergio Perez, as Max Verstappen about to complete a lap. He's done a purple middle sector. Does not go quicker though. By the way, I've got to say, Sergio Perez has been fantastic this season. His pace compared to Verstappen has been brilliant, and I think this season he has finally shown anyone doubting him that he is absolutely good enough to be where he is, and that he is a very good Formula 1 driver indeed. Because he's not been too far away from Verstappen, and of course in Saudi, he got pole and was leading the race comfortably until what happened. And I think he would have won that race if it had not been for the safety car, because he wasn't under massive threat. And even if Leclerc had got past him in the pit stop phase with an undercut, the Red Bull was so quick down the straight, so I think he would have got past him anyway, to be honest. As now they've cut away to Ted Gravitt's in the pit, so I won't be able to tell you what the running order is and who is where for the time being. But yeah, with Mercedes, like I said, I think they just need, firstly, focus on improving the power unit, and then, secondly, try to figure out what the solution needs to be to fix the porpoising. What I think will happen is they will go the whole season with this issue, because I think eventually, when they find what the solution is, the solution, I can tell you now, is not going to be a tweak to the floor. It's not that simple. What it will be is they will have to basically build a new car around a different floor concept. That's what is going to have to happen, because I think that is why they porpoise and it affects them performance-wise so much. It's because the whole concept they've gone for just doesn't work. Because if you compare them to other teams who have the bouncing, the porpoising, like Ferrari, for example, we saw it plenty in Australia. The Ferrari would bounce up and down. The difference is, when the Ferrari stopped bouncing, it wouldn't affect the grip of the car. Like when they entered a corner right after it stopped bouncing, it wouldn't or destabilize the car. With the Mercedes, once the bouncing stops and they go into the entry of a corner, it does destabilize the car, and the driver's having to fight it. And then also on the exit of the corner, the Mercedes isn't that great. Rear end is a bit all over the place on that car. So, to me, simply, Mercedes just fundamentally don't have the right concept if you were to compare it to Ferrari, who are, at the moment, the benchmark in Formula 1. So I think, yeah, most likely that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to have to either build a completely new car and bring it for the second half of the season, or focus their effort, time, resources on next season, which I think is the most likely thing that's going to happen. I don't think, as Alex Albon goes up to second place. By the way, brilliant performance by Albon in Melbourne. I wouldn't say he was driver of the day. I think that has to go to Leclerc, but anyone except for Leclerc, you'd have to go for Alex Albon. What a performance that was to finish in P10 on that super stint as well that he did on the hard compound tyre. But yeah, back to Mercedes. I think that what's likely to happen and what they'll decide to do is they'll decide, right, we'll try and upgrade, bring some upgrades here and there. Then I think mid-season, they will just stop developing the car. And I think they'll focus all their energy on improving and developing the power unit as much as they can before the September deadline for the freeze on development. And then, really, from September through to, of course, the start of pre-season testing next year, I think they'll be focusing, really, on the 2023 car and building a completely new car. Because what they cannot do, because next year's regulations are probably going to be the same, what they cannot do is turn up next year with a car that is conceptually the same, because the concept of this car in terms of the floor, it doesn't work. We can all see it. It just does not work. It's an unstable, all over the place car. And that, because these cars are built around the ground effect, which is the main hub of downforce on these cars, that's where the issues lie. And that's why they need to really just scrap the concept that they've gone with. But I mean, I can understand from a certain perspective why they don't want to do that at the moment, because maybe they can find the solution and make that improvement before they have to get to that point in the season where they have to decide whether to focus on next year or continue developing this year's car. But I think, yeah, most likely that's what's going to happen. They're going to have to give up development mid-season and build a completely new car with a completely new concept next season. And, well, we all wondered, of course, didn't we? When would the Mercedes dominance end? And, well, this season is the end of that dominance. Pretty clear to see. As Fernando Alonso comes to the line and goes P10 in the Alpine. Fernando has been so unlucky this season. Bahrain, he wasn't that great. Ocon was absolutely quicker than him. Saudi, Alonso, I thought was pretty good at that Grand Prix. Was probably heading for a 6th place at that Grand Prix. And then, of course, had the breakdown. And then Melbourne, oh my God, how unlucky was he for having that gear selection issue when it happened? Could he have got pole position? I don't think he would, but I think he would have been on the front row, honestly, with that lap that he did. It was an amazing lap by Fernando, and I'm hoping he doesn't get down about what's happened so far, because the Alpine is good, and he is absolutely back to his very best. There is no doubt about it, so just needs to keep pushing, keep going for it, and he will absolutely get a result this season that he will be very happy with. A podium, or who knows, maybe a race win. You never know in Formula One. In a moment, I will try, if I can, to update the rest of the order. We only have about 12 or 13 times on the board for the teams at the moment. By the way, hello to F1 in chat. Great to see you all. Nip, I don't know how Chaz sits here and waffles for so long without looking at the chat. I got great experience of it, of course, with the Belgian Grand Prix race Watchalong, where I was basically, I did read a lot of stuff from chat, but I was waffling for about 3 hours at least, and the other hour was just reading out stuff from the chat. And so, yeah, we're just looking at a trackside report, basically, of the cars going through the 2 Ravazzas. 2 corners, I have to say, I really do like. Anyway, we're like 20 minutes in. It's Hamilton. It's the purple middle sector. The thing is, though, that middle sector is probably the only part of the track where the Mercedes is manageable and good. The rest of the track, it just isn't, because of the rest of the track. The first and third sector, you have to have a bit more power from the PU, as he loses a couple tenths or even 3/10 of a second almost in the final sector. You have to have a bit more grunt in the first and third sector, and of course the porpoising will be happening in the first and third sector as well for them. The middle sector, it won't be an issue, as Hamilton is up to 2nd position. To be honest, I don't think I'll be able to do the lap times because it's moving around so quick. But what I have decided, which I think you guys will like very much, especially tomorrow in the race watch-along, is on screen I'll have the running order, but what I'll have on the 3rd column, which is empty at the moment, is I will have what tyre they are on. Because I think that's the only thing. I can't really do the live timing during a race watch along because, of course, it's constantly, changing all the time, and I don't have the time to do it, and commentate at the same time. and fiddle around with the order and all that. I just don't have the time. But yeah, I think the best thing I can do is put what tyre everyone is on, because it will give anyone who's not able to watch, I think, a great indication as to who to look out for in terms of who's on what tyre and whatnot. Sergio Perez, who is currently in P1, is on the soft compound tyre. He's done a purple first sector, which is not a surprise because that's where the Red Bull should be at its best. Probably the final sector as well, as Perez comes up to the middle sector, and he has done a slower middle sector than his personal best, but he's still almost 0.2 of a second up on his P1 lap so far. A shame for Perez that he ended up P7, but I have no doubt that he will be able to make up some ground in the sprint later, at least 2 or 3 positions, I think. And Sergio Perez, slightly slower, 0.015 of a second slower than his personal best. But let me just update some of the orders. So you got Perez, P1, then Hamilton, Verstappen, Tsunoda, Albon, Gasly, and then Russell. Sainz is in 8th place, and then you got Leclerc 9th, and then Nicholas Latifi, who just won't stop crashing in qualifying. We'll see, of course, what he does in the sprint. And, of course, he does tend to crash in the race as well, unfortunately. As Carlos Sainz, by the looks of it, and it looks the case with Leclerc as well, it looks as though they're on a bit of a higher fuel run just to test out the balance as the Ferrari porpoises down the straight. But again, that Ferrari car, it does that, but it is able to settle down and not lose its grip on the entry to a corner. When the Mercedes, it's completely the opposite. As Sebastian Vettel is now up to 10th position. And then you got, Latifi 11th. Alonso is in P12. And then it's Guan Yu Zhou 13th. Esteban Ocon is 14th. And then in 15th place, you've got Lance Stroll. And then we've got Magnussen, who, of course, is starting the sprint race from 4th place. Great to see, by the way, Kevin back, of course, like I said. Actually, Kevin goes up to 15th. But yeah, great to see him back. Like I said, back in testing when I was last able to do content. But what a start to the season he's had. Bahrain, he was so good. I wasn't surprised that he was better than his teammate, or so much better than his teammate in Bahrain, because Kevin has always been pretty quick around that track. Also, the Saudi Grand Prix, I thought he did pretty well. Melbourne, I think the reason the Haas car wasn't quick around there was because of really what they said. It was simply because of setup issues. And as well, some cars just don't work around street circuits, but they will work really well around purpose-built racetracks. That's just been the case for decades now. And then, this weekend, they look pretty competitive. I mean, not maybe at the moment, because they're 15th and 17th, but this session is not exactly the most representative in the world, as Russell comes to the line and goes P2. A man who is 2nd in the championship. Considering how Mercedes have started the season, if you told me Russell would be 2nd in the championship after 3 races, I would have said, honestly, I would have said you were mental. Considering how Mercedes, how slow they are compared to, say, Ferrari. But, fantastic start to the season. Bahrain did well. Saudi did very well. Of course, out qualifying his teammate and finishing ahead of him so far. Melbourne, I thought he did well. I didn't think it was an amazing performance, but he did well. He did get very lucky with the virtual safety car. There's no doubt about it, and that's the only reason he finished in 3rd. in that Grand Prix, but you make your own luck at times, and he was able to make his own luck at that point. But yeah, that's pretty much at the moment with 25 minutes in and 35 and a half minutes to go. That's pretty much the order at the moment. You can see on your screen it is Sergio Perez P1, Russell 2nd, Hamilton 3rd, Verstappen 4th, and then Tsunoda, Albon, Gasly, Sainz, Leclerc, Vettel complete the top 10. And then the rest of the order is Latifi, Alonso, Zhou, Ocon, Magnussen, Stroll, Schumacher, Norris, Bottas, Ricciardo. With the bottom three, it might be incorrect because I didn't quite get a good enough look at what the exact positions were for them at the end. But one thing I am going to do, as Sky F1, they've gone to a break, so obviously can't let you guys know what's happening. I'm just going to quickly read out the grid for the sprint race. I think I know really the first half of it, but the second half of it, I wasn't entirely sure what it was. So let's just quickly go through it now. So it will be Max Verstappen on pole for the sprint later on, which is in 3.5 hours from now. And then it will be Leclerc 2nd, Norris 3rd, Magnussen 4th, and then Alonso 5th, Ricciardo 6th, Perez 7th, Bottas 8th, Vettel 9th, and Carlos Sainz at P10. And then Russell 11th, Schumacher 12th, Hamilton 13th, Zhou Guanyu 14th, Stroll 15th, and then Tsunoda 16th, Gasly 17th, AlphaTauri, absolutely horrific. And then Latifi 18th, Ocon 19th, and Albon 20th. The reason Albon was 20th is because he had a brake fire, which he said was because he put the wrong brake, I think, switch on. With AlphaTauri, by the way, I think the reason they're so slow is because their car is pretty much a slower version of the Red Bull in terms of that they have the same strengths and weaknesses that the Red Bull car has. The car is okay in the corners, but it's not anything amazing, and it's not certainly going to push their way up to some phenomenal positions at the moment because it doesn't stand out. But they do have good straight line speed. There is no doubt about that because the Red Bull powertrain is so strong. But around a track like Imola, that's not really, especially if it's a wet-ish qualifying, that's not really going to help you. So it's not a surprise that AlphaTauri was so low. But in the sprint, I think there'll be some overtaking done by those two, sure, because I think the AlphaTauri is not that bad. But it's not exactly been the start to the season I think AlphaTauri would have wanted. They are, is it 8th in the championship? I mean, they're only, 3 points away from 6th, so it's not a disaster, but it's definitely not the start to the season I think they were hoping for. Of course, Gasly was heading for a few points in Bahrain, and then he broke down. So, yeah, as we're now back live, and we were looking at a helmet cam of Fernando Alonso, I think, but no longer, as Russell has done a purple middle sector, currently in second place. And let's see what he does when he comes to the line. And goes P1 by 0.333. So, Russell up to P1. I think Mercedes really, I wouldn't say they're massively going for a glory run, but I think that's definitely part of it. Because, of course, we know that they're not really as quick as Ferrari and Red Bull. And they could go a lot quicker, Ferrari and Red Bull, I think. As, Russell up to P1. Just checking the rest of the order to see if it's any different. It is. Guanyu Zhou. Or Zhou Guanyu, sorry. I have to get used to saying it the correct way. Because I think in testing I was saying Guanyu Zhou. But now it's supposed to be Zhou Guanyu. So please do bear with me when it comes to that. I will try and correct myself when I can. And Lance Stroll is up to P11. By the way, I know the pictures on the screen, the cars have intermediate tyres on and they look like they're in wet running. It's not wet at the track right now. The reason I've got these pictures on the screen is because, of course, these are the only pictures before this session started of the cars from this track this weekend from yesterday. So for the sprint later, I will have updated pictures and I will have, them in dry conditions because, of course, the sprint race will be dry later. There's no doubt about it. As Norris saying on the radio, something happened with the brake pedal at turn 2. They said, yep, we see that. It's still long now. Happened again into the second to last corner. And now they're boxing him. So, brake problems again. For McLaren, of course, Bahrain. The reason they were so poor in Bahrain was because I think, one, the track didn't quite suit their car, the characteristics of their car. But secondly, the brake problems they had meant they missed out on so much track time compared to their rivals. Great to see in Melbourne, though, them, a lot more competitive. And for the first 15, 20 laps of that race, they were right on the tail of the two Mercedes cars. So they're not far away, McLaren, from getting it more so right. They're still, I still would say it's been a disappointing season so far. I expected more. But I have the feeling with McLaren that once they get reliability sorted to a point where they can consistently finish races, I get the feeling that they can consistently score some very good points. I think we will see that this season. And we saw that, of course, in Melbourne, where they scored 18 points. So yeah, Guan Yu Zhou has just gone up to Zhou Guan Yu, sorry, fuck me, has gone up to 8th place, and then it's Stroll, and then Sainz 9th, Leclerc 10th, and then Stroll, Vettel, and then you've got Alonso 13th, and then Latifi, Ocon, Magnussen, Schumacher, Norris, and then Ricciardo, or Bottas and Ricciardo on the bottom two, and Bottas and Ricciardo have not set a time. Let me just quickly go to Twitter to see what's up with the McLaren and the Alfa Romeo. Because, of course, what do you call it? With the sprint later, you want to be getting some running in so you get just a general feel of the track and all, especially in these conditions when yesterday was a lot wetter. Yeah, I'll just quickly have a look at McLaren, and yeah, they have a brake system issue on Lando's car. So, and they're trying to get him back out for the start of the session. I'm going to try and look at Chris Medland's Twitter, but I'm not sure I'll get really great information from that. Not because he's not good at reporting stuff, but because he, oh no, he is at the track. He had some sort of thing in Melbourne to Chris Medland, who's one of the best F1 journalists. He was admitted to hospital and then released and came back to the UK. I don't know what happened. It's not actually been... Well, I've not seen what it actually was. Hope it wasn't anything serious, like any heart-related stuff, because, yeah, that wouldn't be great. But good to see that he's at the track this weekend. And, right, so McLaren has already said it has an issue on Ricciardo's car that's being investigated and keeping him in the garage. Maybe it's the same issue. Maybe it is the same issue. And let me just quickly check Alfa Romeo. As the order, by the way, is not really any different. I mean, Latifi's gone up to 12th, but I'll update that in a moment. All Alfa Romeo are saying is that they continue to work on Valtteri's car to get it ready. That's all they're saying. Of course, Bottas, he did stop on track with an issue in qualifying yesterday. Maybe that's related to to what happened. So, let me just update Latifi. They're up to P12. As we're now looking at the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, porpoising down the straight. I mean, in the dry, they shouldn't have to lift with the porpoising. In the wet, though, if you're bouncing up and down, like there is a possibility you could actually end up like dropping the car under braking into entry of the corner. You know, when coming off so much bouncing and all of that. So I think that's probably why that happened yesterday for them, in terms of having to lift on the straight because they were bouncing that much. I think in the dry, I don't think it's that bad that they're having to lift in dry conditions, because when it's bone dry, I don't think the car is going to lose grip and spin, because I don't think it loses grip that much, if you know what I mean. But we have what? How many cars in the pits? 9 cars, 10 cars, 11 cars, 12 cars actually in the pits right now. As Alex Albon is on another lap, and he has just completed the first sector, currently in 6th place. This doesn't look like though he's really pushing, because his first sector is miles off what his personal best would have been. But before we get into any more track action and discussion, I just want to say, again, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because I will be live in about 3 hours from now at 3 p.m. UK time for the F1 sprint race, the first one of the season, taking place at Imola. And yeah, make sure to come along to that, join me for the build-up, and then I'll take you through the race, commentate on it, what goes on. It's probably going to be a... let me just check how many laps. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you do it right there. And as well, don't forget to smash the like button, share this video and channel everywhere you can. And as well, again, follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 to keep up to date with content. And probably when I get some more followers on Twitter, I will start posting other things rather than just posting, you know, my when I go live and that. There's no point, you know, posting other stuff on Twitter when you don't have any followers, really. I think I only have like 1 or 2 followers because I've obviously restarted my Twitter account. I used to have like 100 or 200 followers on my previous one, as Max Verstappen is on a new lap. And yeah, this is also not a quick one, as he's half a second down and has not improved his first sector. Yeah, let me just check to see how many laps the sprint is. Probably take a bit of time to find out. It should be, like I said, it should be a 30-minute race. So maybe it'll be 25 laps. I think 25 laps without safety cars or anything like that would probably be 30 minutes. Let's find the... if I can... No. I will try and just quickly find it, because of course I want to know. Sprint race. Why is no one... I'm looking online and there's just no, like... There's no, what do you call it? Clear, like, oh, this is how many laps there are for the sprint. Sprint race, 3:30 p.m. BST. Again, there's no, like, how many laps it is. If anyone knows how many laps the sprint race is later, that would be absolutely fantastic. It really, really would. I'll keep looking, though, because it is important. But the reason I'm not taking you through at the moment anything going out on track or going on track is because there's not really much happening. I mean, Vettel, I'll quickly update that. Vettel, Stroll, and Latifi have improved their positions, but nothing majorly going on. And yeah, Latifi up to P11. And they've got two Ferraris, 12th and 13th. Of course, they've just been doing higher fuel running, so that's why they are so far down. As Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon has come out on a set of soft tyres, as Latifi now goes up to 9th place in the Williams. Yeah, let me just find... see how many laps this sprint is later. Uh, 21 laps. There you go. The sprint start 3:30 p.m. BST. Obviously, that's UK time. And is due to last for 21 laps with an upper time limit of 30 minutes. There you go. And by the way, yeah, I am covering the sprint race, but my opinions are not, they're not any different when it comes to the sprint race. I still hate the sprint race. I don't like it, but because this is my first weekend back doing content, I need to get straight back in and do as much as I can because of what I've missed. So I'm willing to put up with it. I mean, I don't think it'll be terrible. I think it'll be like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. The sprint race. What it'll be really is the faster cars just getting back into position. I think the main ones to look out for are Perez and Sainz, but I think Russell and Hamilton. I don't think Mercedes are as slow as what they were in qualifying. I don't believe that at all. I think the reason they were that far off in qualifying is because of the conditions. Because when you have issues with porpoising and then lack of grip from that porpoising, then going into the entry of corners, also the rear end of their car isn't stable, and of course in wet conditions that's not going to, that's going to hurt you even more. I think that's why that happened. And even though I think maybe in Q2 it was dry, it wasn't dry. It was still, a damp-ish track, and the grip wasn't of an optimum. So I think in bone dry conditions, I think Mercedes will be better. I don't think they're going to stay 11th and 13th. There's no chance of that. I don't think they'll get, I don't think they're going to fly up to 5th and 6th or anything like that, but I don't think they're going to stay in 11th and 13th. I think that's absolutely for sure. Count Blah saying, I stumbled into something yesterday thinking it was qualifying, then I don't know what happened. Now it's the FP2. I know. If it was up to me, I would keep it as it normally is. FP1, FP2 Friday, FP3 quali Saturday, and then race Sunday. It works just fine. There's no reason to change it. There's plenty of other things in Formula 1 that have needed altering and fixing, and I think 2022 and the regulations we've got, I think that's massively helped fixing a certain issue. But I don't think the sprint race really fixes anything. It's just it's the continued Americanization of Formula 1. That's all you can call it. The sprint race, it doesn't add anything different, really. I mean, it adds something different, but it's not in a good way. It is literally different to a normal weekend, of course, but it doesn't add anything different in a good way. It doesn't add anything in a good way, period, to the weekend. It's, it doesn't... You don't come away from a race weekend like, oh god, that sprint race, what a sprint race. Like, the sprint races we've had so far they weren't terrible. I mean, the Monza one was poor. The Silverstone one was okay at best. It was like a 4 or 5 out of 10. The best one, of course, was the Sao Paulo Grand Prix sprint, and that was only because of Lewis Hamilton. And I'd still say that was even, a 5 or a 6 out of 10. Most of his overtakes were just, pressing a button, DRS overtakes. So, yeah, the sprint doesn't add anything to a race weekend for me, and it just messes things up. I mean, yeah, maybe we wouldn't have got, the grid that we have for the sprint, and maybe that'll create another exciting starting grid for the race on Sunday. I get that, but it's just, just don't. We've said this plenty of times, haven't we? Don't fix something that isn't broken. Qualifying, since since Formula One settled on the format of qualifying of Q1, Q2, Q3, which was back in 2006, it's worked. But one of the only things in Formula One since that time, since the mid-2000s, that we still have and everyone loves. So why change it? It's because the people running F1, I mean, I don't think they quite understand what the fans actually want. I think they kind of do to a certain extent, but I don't think they absolutely do. And I just think the sprint race, like I said, it is an Americanization, really, because it is something you would see in a more American-like series or sport. Trying to generate or creating something to generate more revenue, money in general, and just adding another pointless layer to the show when it doesn't need it. Anyway. We have, 13 and a half minutes to go. And the order is a bit different now. So we have Leclerc up in second place. Sergio Perez is out on track on the medium compound tyre. And he's just doing a longer fueled run compared to what he was doing earlier. And yeah, Perez third, Hamilton fourth. And then you have Fernando Alonso up in fifth position for Alpine, and then Carlos Sainz has also improved up to sixth place. Ferrari, like I said, they can go a lot quicker than that. I think Ferrari, I'll get into it more later when we build up to the sprint race, but I do think Ferrari have the best car for this track. The first sector, I think it's close between Ferrari and Red Bull, but really the middle sector and probably the first half of the final sector, I just think the Ferrari car is better. And if there was a car I would want to have for this track, it would be the Ferrari car, because I just think it works better around a track like this. And I think what the job Verstappen did yesterday was brilliant to get on pole for the sprint, because we know he is very strong in defense, and if he can keep the pole for the race on Sunday, then because of Red Bull's straight line speed, they will be hard to overtake with Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. They will not be an easy overtake. So it is vital that Max holds on for the lead of the sprint race and wins the sprint race. Of course, not only because of the extra points for this year, but because also it gives him a good chance of holding off Leclerc and using the Red Bull's strengths of the powertrain to its advantage, as Sergio Perez yet again completes another lap. McLaren F1 races having Friday qualifying at 4 p.m. was sickening, I guess you'd say. Had to avoid social media until the rerun at 9 p.m. Having to do the same today for the sprint. Yesterday, the reason I didn't do any streaming yesterday is because I was at work, so I couldn't do any streaming. And yeah, I didn't have the time to look at what the result was until 8:30, 9 o'clock And I was like, bloody hell, that's a mixed up grid. I knew it was going to be a wet session to a certain extent, but I didn't think it would be. I didn't think it would be that all over the place, to be honest. As Carlos Sainz does another lap on the medium compound tyre. Leclerc is back down to third place. Leclerc, by the way, he's done his best time on the soft, and Carlos Sainz's best time is on the medium. And here is the bouncing from Russell yesterday. And yeah, I mean, and then today doesn't look as bad, but are they running? Are they on the straight? Are they going as quickly on the straight as they could? Because of course, when you run your power unit to the max, you're going to be going quicker on the straight, obviously. So we need to see in the sprint and the race on Sunday whether, you know, they have actually improved it. But I know, of course, this is a practice session, and people will want to look into this session to a certain extent, look into it and say, well, Mercedes, you know, they're looking a lot better. I really don't think you can take an absolute ton from this session in terms of representative data, because this practice session, you know, they're locked into their setups and everything. Normally in practice 2, you have the ability to, you know, try out different setups, put new parts on the car, all of that. And you know, what they're not practicing for the real qualifying; they're practicing for a sprint race. So again, it's not really that representative. And plus, you got Perez second on the medium compound tyre. Perez could probably go at least half a second quicker than Russell. And then I still think Ferrari are probably running a bit conservative on fuel. As Leclerc has done a purple first sector, done a yellow middle sector, which means he hasn't improved, and does a yellow final sector, so he didn't improve his lap. Yeah, I don't think Ferrari are running at their absolute quickest. I think Mercedes definitely pushing quite a bit harder, but I mean, even if they've, maybe in dry conditions they will be a bit better, which I think, they probably will be better in dry conditions, the Mercedes, but I don't think they're going to suddenly just be as quick as Red Bull or anything like that. Anyway, let's complete some of the order here with a few minutes to go. So, it's Russell first, and then Perez, Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, Sainz, Verstappen, Tsunoda, Zhou, and Albon. And then Gasly is P11. And then you've got Magnussen and Schumacher in 13th place. And then Vettel is 14th. And then you got Ocon 15th. There you go. And then Latifi is 16th. Stroll 17th. And then Norris, Bottas, and Ricciardo. So there you go. That's the order with 7 minutes to go. As we're now looking at Lance Stroll, who is just coming through. Now he's entering the middle sector where the Aston Martin should be horrific. I mean, it's horrific around all parts of the circuit, but especially horrific. I have to say, Aston Martin, they have produced one of the worst and most disappointing cars I've seen in a while. It's not Williams 2019 or Haas 2021 bad, even though the Haas car from last year, the reason it was bad was because it wasn't developed. They, weren't developing the car. That's the reason it was bad. I think it could have been a lot better if they actually developed it. Of course, that's benefited Haas for this season, but yeah, this Aston Martin is just so bad. It's so bad. I mean, the race in Melbourne, even despite Stroll having a chance and was not too far away from a points finish before, and that's, without the penalty, wasn't too far away. The amount of, breakdowns and, what do you call it? Yeah, the amount of breakdowns and just the way the car looked on track, it was just absolutely horrific. And for a team who I know is capable of a lot more, that was a really nice run by Mick Schumacher through that chicane. That was really nice. Did bump a bit over the entry, but that was a really nice run through the chicane. As Carlos Sainz improves his lap time, but doesn't go any higher up the order. For a team that we know they are capable of a lot more. Look at 2017, 2018, where they had no money, and even 2016, of course, where they had no money. They had money, but nowhere near the money of their rivals. Yet they were finishing in the top 4 of the championship and occasionally finishing on the podium. They were doing fantastic. We know they are capable of very good things. And even last season, they had a couple really good results, didn't they? Vettel second in Hungary. Let's be honest, he was a real second in Hungary. I know he got disqualified because of a technical infringement, but he finished second in Hungary. And then he was a 5th in Monaco. Like, they are capable, Aston Martin, as a team, of producing great results and having good cars, having good seasons. But this car is just so bad. There's nothing about it that you'd just say, yeah, that looks good. Absolutely nothing. There's Ted on the double screen just pointing out how the tyre rips up. As Gunther Steiner watches on his team. Here's a replay of Charles Leclerc into the chicane and bumps very hard. Oh, almost spins. That wouldn't have done the floor nice at all, because he just attacked the absolute living hell out of that chicane. I was going to say with Mick Schumacher, it will be interesting to see how he gets on for the rest of the weekend, because, I mean, his qualifying wasn't bad, P12, but considering where his teammate is, then, you start thinking, yeah, he could have done a lot better, and I really do get that. And to a certain extent, I probably agree that he probably should have done better. But you would think that Mick would be good around here, because he raced around here in Euro F3. I'm pretty sure he did. And then he raced here last year, even though, of course, his car was terrible. And I think he had that spin, didn't he, where he lost his front wing. He spun under the safety car, behind the safety car. But he has experience here, probably more than Kevin Magnussen, or maybe the same amount that Kevin Magnussen does have. Yet he's, not really that close to Magnussen on the grid, which is disappointing. But I am curious to see how he gets on for the rest of the weekend if it is dry, because he has, like I said, he has experience around here. But also, of course, his father was amazing around this track. So many great performances. The last Ferrari win at Imola was Michael Schumacher. Of course, that drive in 2005 where he just went into another planet of performance in that Grand Prix. And then he won here in 2004, 2003, 2002, I think 2000, 99, 94. Of course, the infamous 94 race. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Mick can get himself a good result. I mean, of course, he's not going to win the race, but I think a points finish really should be his aim. Like an 8th or a 9th. I think that should be his aim, really, for this weekend, because he's in a decent position for the sprint, P12, and if he is around there for the grid, for the race, then you would be hoping that Mick would be able to nick a few points as Sergio Perez continues on another lap, as we are only 40 seconds away from the end of this session, as finally they get Lando Norris out on track, but it's only going to be for an installation lap just to make sure the problem is fixed, as Perez, by the looks of it, is on a quick lap, but I don't think he will improve. Let's see what his middle sector is like, though. I think he has some traffic ahead. Yeah, he does. Don't know who it is. It's Alpine. And yeah, he's not going any quicker on this lap. Is Sergio Perez. And I'll just quickly update the order. As there you go, practice 2 is now over. Let me just update a couple positions quickly as the session comes to a close. And there you go, checkered flag waving now. And yeah, there you go. So, guys, that is practice 2, the final practice session of the weekend, final session before the sprint race later on. And it is George Russell, Mr. Saturday, P1 for Mercedes. I don't think that's representative, though, of their pace. And then in P2 is Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc 3rd, Hamilton 4th, Alonso 5th, Carlos Sainz 6th. The man who will be starting on pole for the sprint race is Max Verstappen. He was P7. And then Tsunoda 8th, Gasly 9th, and Zhou Guanyu 10th. And then Albon, Magnussen, Schumacher, Stroll, Vettel, Ocon, Latifi, Norris, Bottas, and Ricciardo. Bottas and Ricciardo did not do a lap. I will try and find out why in between the sessions. But guys, that is it for this stream, and that is it for practice 2. Make sure to join me at 3 p.m. UK time, so 2.5 hours from now, for the sprint race watch-along, where I will, do a half an hour build-up, getting into what I think will happen, who to look out for, and all of that. Then, of course, we'll cover the sprint race, and then as soon as it's done, then that'll be it. So make sure to come along to that later. Again, in 2.5 hours from now. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. As well, hit the notifications bell for more content like this, so you get notified as to when that content is out and live or uploaded. And as well, smash the like button. Share this video and channel every way you can. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. If you want to see what the exact @ is, then just go down in the description. And as well, don't forget to join my Discord server down below. Link down below to join that server. Quite a number of people in there. And also a great place for notifications for my videos and streams. But guys, until my sprint race watch along in 2.5 hours time, it has been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.